It was a quiet night. 6-year-old Alara had just fallen asleep beside her mother on the mat. Her little brother, barely a year old, was wrapped in old cloth, sleeping near the firewood corner. Her father had just returned from the farm a few hours ago and slept off on the wooden chair in the other room. Suddenly, screams. Then heat. Then fire. Before Alara could open her eyes properly, the hut was full of thick black smoke. She couldn't see anything. She couldn't breathe. She could hear her baby brother crying. Then the crying stopped. She heard her mother's voice shouting her name, but only once. She tried to reach for her mother, but the flames were too hot. Her hand burned. Her foot burned. She screamed and crawled to the door, crying and calling for help. No one came. She crawled outside, her dress half burnt, her skin peeling. Her hair had caught fire. She rolled in the mud to stop the pain, crying for her family. But everything was gone. Her mother, her father, her baby brother, all gone, burnt. The villagers came out one by one and just stared. Some covered their mouths, others turned away. No one came close. One old woman whispered, "How can one child survive this? This is not normal." They didn't call her Alara anymore. They called her Ash, because that's all she came out with. Ashes, burns, and pain. She had no one. She had nothing. Not even a name that belonged to love anymore. After the fire, no one wanted Alara, not even for pity, not even for food. She wandered the village barefoot for 2 days, hungry, dirty, and weak. Her legs were covered in wounds. Her lips were dry. She cried for her mother until no more tears came. Then old Marlowe, the village gravedigger, came. Not because he cared, but because he said, "If no one takes her, she'll die. I can use her to clean the graves." And just like that, Alara's new home became a tiny wooden shed beside the graveyard. Marlowe gave her one rule: if you don't work, you don't eat. Every morning, even before the sun rose, Alara was out in the graveyard, cleaning tombstones, carrying buckets of dirty water, and pulling weeds around fresh graves. Her fingers bled, her back hurt, her wounds never healed properly. She was still just a child. But Marlowe didn't care. To him, she wasn't a girl. She was just an orphan with no value. A tool, a burden, a mouth to feed. He never called her Alara. He called her Ash Girl. Sometimes when he was angry, he said worse. She ate scraps, leftovers from the food he gave his dog. She wore the same burnt dress for months. No shoes, no comb, no love. On cold nights, she'd lie on the floor, shivering and whispering to herself, "Mama, please come get me." But no one ever came. All she had was the sound of the wind, the smell of fresh graves, and the ashes of a life she didn't understand. Alara lived among the dead. Not because she chose to, but because the living had no space for her. The graveyard became her prison. The dead, her only friends. Their names were written on stone. Hers was not written anywhere. Old Marlowe made her sleep just a few feet away from the graves. No windows, no door, just wooden walls and a leaking roof. When it rained, she got wet. When it thundered, she cried alone. And when Marlowe drank palm wine, he turned into a monster. "Useless orphan," he'd shout. "You think I brought you here to rest? Go clean the graves." Sometimes he'd throw bones at her, leftovers from his soup. Other times he'd chase her around with a cane, beating her for no reason, even when she'd done all the work. Her tiny hands bled from digging graves. Her feet cracked from walking barefoot on thorns and stones. Her back bent like an old woman's from carrying heavy water buckets. And at night, he'd lock her inside the shed. No food, no light, no voice to hear her pain. She spoke to herself. She hugged herself. She sang softly to the wind. "I'm not dead. I'm not dead. I'm not dead." That was her lullaby. When she cried, Marlowe would shout from his hut, "Cry louder so the dead can wake and take you too." One day, a boy her age passed by the graveyard and saw her scrubbing a tombstone with a rag made from her own torn dress. He laughed and shouted, "Look, the Ash Girl is cleaning dead people like they are her family." The other children called her Ghost Girl, Grave Rat, Child of Sorrow. No one touched her. No one smiled at her. To them, she was cursed, dirty, and better off dead. But she lived. With every breath, every tear, and every pain, she lived. One fateful day, Alara was alone by the oldest part of the graveyard, scrubbing a moss-covered tombstone with a piece of rag. Her hands were cracked and bleeding from the cold. Her clothes were wet and torn, but she didn't complain. She never did. As she cleared the thick mud near the grave, her fingers touched something hard, metallic. She paused, then carefully dug with her bare hands. Slowly, she pulled out a small, round gold coin covered in dirt. She blinked. At first, she thought her eyes were playing tricks on her. She rubbed it gently against her sleeve, and it shone. Bright, beautiful, real. Her heart began to race. She looked around quickly. No one was there. Alara had never owned anything valuable, not even a pair of shoes, not a doll, not a comb, nothing. But now, this coin, it was hers. She didn't know that this coin once belonged to her family. She didn't know it was part of a stolen fortune. She didn't even know her family had once been rich. All she knew was this gold coin was the only treasure she'd ever touched. She kissed it, whispered, "Thank you," like the dead had gifted it to her. Then she dug a small hole behind the shed, wrapped it in cloth, and hid it beneath a broken stone where no one could see. That night, for the first time in her life, she smiled in her sleep. But old Marlowe noticed. He had seen her return from the graveyard that day with a strange light in her eyes. "Why is the rat smiling?" he had whispered to himself. "What's she hiding?" While she slept in the dark corner of the shed, he sneaked out with a lantern, searched the graveyard, overturned stones, dug around the mud, but found nothing. His anger boiled. By morning, before the sun rose, he stormed into the shed and kicked her in the stomach. "Get up, you devil child," Alara gasped, struggling to breathe. He grabbed a cane and beat her as she screamed, "Why were you smiling yesterday? What are you hiding, huh? Did you steal something?" "I didn't steal," she cried, tears running down her cheeks. I was happy." Wrong answer. The beating got worse. By the time he stopped, her body was sore, her lip bleeding, her back marked with welts. But through the pain, she held one thought close to her heart. The coin was still safe. Her secret, her treasure. The only thing she had ever owned in a world that gave her nothing. And in the dark, bruised and broken, she whispered to herself, "Someday, this coin will change my life. Someday." The morning after the beating, Alara was still too weak to stand. Her face was pale. Her body burned with fever. She hadn't eaten anything. Old Marlowe watched her from a distance, scratching his beard. Just then, a wealthy merchant passed by the graveyard gates in a grand carriage. He wore fine clothes and gold rings on his fingers. 2 guards walked beside him. He was known in the town, rich, proud, and feared. Marlowe rushed toward him with fake respect. Sir, good day," Marlowe shouted. "I have someone you might be interested in." The merchant frowned, annoyed. "What do you mean?" Marlowe pointed to the shed where Alara lay like a dying bird. "She's a strong little girl," he lied. "Hard-working, quiet, no family. She cleans well. You won't find a better housemaid." The merchant raised a brow. "How much?" "Pay me whatever you like," Marlowe grinned. "She's nothing but a grave rat anyway." And just like that, Alara was sold. No goodbye, no choice, no name asked. By evening, she was dragged out of the graveyard, thrown into a carriage, and taken far from the only place she had ever known, even if it had been cruel. Her gold coin remained hidden behind the shed, left behind. Her only treasure? Gone. The merchant's mansion was grand and cold, like a palace with no heart. Marble floors, long hallways, tall mirrors, servants in stiff uniforms. Alara was given a maid uniform to wear and a mop to hold. She wasn't allowed to speak unless spoken to. She wasn't allowed to eat unless leftovers were thrown her way. And worst of all, she came face to face with the merchant's wife and spoiled daughter, Clarissa. Clarissa was Alara's age but lived like a queen. Her hands were soft. Her voice was sharp. She hated Alara at first sight. "Why is that skeleton in my house?" Clarissa cried. "She smells like the grave." From that day on, Alara became their favorite target. They poured soapy water on the floor and watched her slip. They made her clean the same room 5 times. They threw food on the ground and ordered her to eat like a dog. "You're a rat," Clarissa would scream. "You belong in the trash." And the merchant's wife, cold and cruel, only encouraged it. "It's good for her," she'd say. "It keeps her in her place." Alara never cried in front of them. Only at night, in the dark corner of the kitchen corridor where she slept, would her silent tears fall. She missed the coin. She missed the graveyard. She missed being invisible. Now, she was seen, only to be mocked. One evening, as she scrubbed the floor of the grand hallway, a soft voice broke the silence. "Are you all right?" Alara looked up. It was Liam, the merchant's quiet son. He was about 14, with kind eyes and a book always in his hand. She blinked. No one had asked her that before. I'm fine," she whispered, though her knees bled. He stared at her for a moment, then disappeared. That night, when she returned to the kitchen corridor, she found a small bowl of warm soup, covered, fresh, not scraps. Beside it, a book. She gasped. The next day, he passed by again. "They said I can't talk to you," he said softly. "But I don't think that's fair," he smiled. She tried not to smile back, afraid someone would see. From that day, whenever no one was looking, Liam left her tiny gifts, books, bread, kind notes with pressed flowers. Alara kept them hidden under her tiny mattress. They were the only proof that someone saw her as human. Even if she was still called a filthy orphan, even if they all wanted her broken. For the first time in her life, she began to feel like she mattered. Just a little. Some months had passed, and one fateful day. The sun was just beginning to set. Alara was outside on the mansion's wide veranda, silently mopping the marble floor with her bare, blistered feet. Her hands ached. Her dress was soaked. She hadn't eaten since morning. Suddenly, the front door burst open. Clarissa stormed in, laughing loudly, phone pressed to her ear, not watching where she was going. "Ha ha! That's hilarious, Amanda! Wait till I tell Daddy!" She didn't see the mop bucket. She tripped. With a loud shriek, she crashed hard onto the floor. Her phone flew out of her hand. Her elbow hit the edge of a chair. Her laughter turned to rage. Alara dropped her mop and rushed over, panicked. "Are you all right? I'm so sorry. I didn't..." Slap! A hot, stinging slap landed across Alara's face. She staggered back, stunned. Clarissa stood up, her face red with fury, eyes wide with hatred. "Oh, you finally did it," she screamed. "You promised to make me fall, and you did it." Alara's eyes filled with tears. She fell to her knees, hands clasped together. No, Miss Clarissa, I swear, I never said that. I would never." Before she could finish, a cold voice thundered from behind. "You pathetic idiot." It was the merchant's wife. She rushed forward, grabbed Alara by the arm, and yanked her up roughly. "So you pushed her, didn't you? You've always hated my daughter." "No, ma'am, I didn't touch her." But Clarissa burst into tears and ran into her mother's arms like a wounded child. "She hates me, Mom," she wailed. "She's jealous of me. She wants to hurt me." The merchant's wife hugged her, glaring over Clarissa's shoulder with eyes like fire. "You've crossed the line this time, orphan. You'll pay for this." Alara stood frozen, her cheek burning, her knees trembling, her heart pounding. No one cared that she was innocent. No one listened. The truth didn't matter. She was just a maid, just an orphan. And in this house, that meant she had no voice. That night, the merchant came home. Clarissa had already filled his ears with tears and lies, telling him how Alara pushed her out of jealousy. The merchant's wife added fuel with every word. "That orphan is becoming dangerous," she said coldly. "She could kill our daughter if we let her stay." The merchant slammed his walking stick on the marble floor. "Enough," he barked. "Lock her in the basement for 3 days. No food, no water. Let her learn her place." The guards didn't hesitate. They grabbed Alara roughly from the kitchen, where she'd been washing dishes with trembling hands. Please, I didn't do anything," she cried. "I swear on my mother's grave, I didn't." But no one listened. They dragged her down the dark hallway, past the storage rooms, down the cold stone steps, into the basement, a cold, empty room that smelled of rats and damp walls. The door slammed shut behind her. The sound of the lock turning echoed like a final nail in a coffin. She fell to the floor, shivering, starving, alone. Later that night, the house was quiet. Everyone had gone to bed, but footsteps crept down the stairs, soft, careful, hesitant. A knock, then a whisper. "Alara, are you awake?" She opened her eyes, barely able to sit up. It was Liam. He crouched by the basement door, a small torch in one hand, a cloth bundle in the other. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I heard what they said. I know you didn't push her." A lump rose in Alara's throat. "They hate me," she whispered back. "I didn't even see her coming." He unlocked the door with a spare key and handed her the cloth bundle. Inside were 2 warm bread rolls, a boiled egg, and a small bottle of water. "Eat slowly," he said, "and don't let them find this." She took the bundle with shaking hands. Her tears fell silently, soaking the edge of the cloth. "Why are you kind to me?" she asked. Liam looked down. "Because I see you." Then he slipped away, vanishing back into the shadows. Alara ate slowly in the dark, her hands shaking. She was still a prisoner, still an orphan, still hated by the ones who held power. But somewhere in the mansion, someone believed her. And that small truth kept her alive through the night. Years passed. Liam had become a fine young man, broad-shouldered, strong, and thoughtful. Clarissa had grown into a stunning young woman, but she remained proud, bitter, and cruel. And Alara? She had bloomed into a quiet, breathtaking beauty. Her eyes still carried sadness, but her smile, rare as it was, could stop hearts. The mansion still saw her as a maid, but Liam saw her as something more. He now defended her openly when Clarissa insulted her, standing between them with a calm, firm voice. But when it came to his heart, he spoke in quiet gifts. A ribbon, a book, a flower from the garden, left where only she would find them. And sometimes, when the house was empty, they would sneak away to the garden, beneath the old willow tree, and talk about anything, everything, and nothing. 5 days to her 18th birthday. The air was warm. Birds chirped in the trees. Alara sat on the stone bench, her skirt tucked beneath her knees. Liam walked in quietly, holding a small paper bag with sweet buns. He sat beside her. 5 days from now, he said, smiling. You'll be 18, a woman. Alara chuckled softly. Doesn't change anything. I'll still be sweeping this mansion like a ghost no one sees. He reached into the bag and handed her a bun. So, what do you want? A book? A dress? I'll get you anything. She looked at him, eyes soft, voice low. All I want is the gold coin. Liam blinked. What coin? The one I found on my 10th birthday, she said slowly, looking at the flower bed. Near the graveyard, before your father bought me. I buried it before they dragged me away. It's the only thing I ever had, the only thing that felt mine. Liam's breath caught. His heart sank. Alara, he whispered, leaning closer. That's dangerous. That place is guarded now. If I get caught digging, they'll call it theft. I could be arrested. Tears welled up in her eyes. I know, she whispered, but I've never had anything to call mine. Not a dress, not a toy, not a memory. Only that coin. Just one thing, one small thing. A tear rolled down her cheek. Liam's chest tightened. He reached for her hand. Don't cry. But she couldn't stop. She lowered her head and he gently held both her hands in his. They stayed like that for a moment, silent, broken, connected. Then Liam whispered, I'll get it. Alara looked up, shocked. You will? He nodded. Even if I have to dig all night, I'll find it. I promise. Their hands tightened. Alara closed her eyes, and together, under that tree, they whispered a short prayer, soft, trembling, sacred. A prayer that the earth would give back what it once held, and that, somehow, fate would be kind, just once. 3 days to her birthday. Liam stood quietly at the dinner table, poking his food. The merchant, his father, was reading the papers. His mother was rambling about a business guest coming next weekend. Clarissa scrolled through her phone, chewing noisily. Dad, Liam spoke softly, I need to visit my cousins in Greystone Village, just for 2 days. I promised I'd come before school resumes. The merchant barely looked up. Fine, take the spare car. No, I'll go by bus, Liam said quickly. Just want to go alone, clear my head. He packed light. Just black jeans, hoodie, power bank, and a torchlight tucked into his pocket. By evening, he boarded the local village-bound bus. The ride was bumpy, with dusty windows and sleepy passengers. But Liam wasn't tired. His mind raced with only one thought. Get the coin. Give her back her only memory. He arrived at Greystone past 10 p.m. The air was thicker, colder. Shadows stretched long between broken streetlights. Dogs howled in the distance. He didn't stop to greet anyone. He knew this village. He had visited a few times as a boy. But tonight, he came as a ghost. He walked fast, hoodie up, face down, until he reached it. The graveyard. It stood at the edge of the village, wide, silent, and surrounded by an iron gate. The real problem? The graveyard was now protected. Rumors had spread over the years about grave looters and hidden wealth. 2 elderly guards sat near the front entrance, half asleep beside a lantern and a transistor radio. He couldn't go in through the front. Liam circled behind the graveyard, cutting through bushes and thorns until he found the broken fence, the same one villagers used for shortcuts. He climbed through, tore his hoodie on a rusted wire, but didn't stop. Inside, the graveyard was darker than black. Graves stretched out like cracked bones under the night sky. His breath turned to mist. He turned on his torchlight, only for a second at a time, just enough to check the ground and the crooked headstones. 10 paces from the weeping tree, beside the crooked grave, Alara had told him. He counted, stepped, counted again. Then, he dropped to his knees. With trembling fingers, he dug with a pocket trowel in his bare hands. Soil filled his nails. The cold numbed his knuckles. Suddenly, his fingers hit something hard. A coin. Then, something else. A small bundle wrapped tightly in black cloth. He gasped and held them both to his chest. Just then, a flashlight swept across the trees. Hey, who's there? Did you hear that? The guards shouted. Panic surged through Liam's veins. He turned off his torchlight, dropped flat on the ground, didn't breathe. Footsteps came closer. The flashlight was now just 10 feet away. Then a scream pierced the night. A woman from a nearby hut had seen a snake and started yelling. The guards turned immediately toward the noise and ran off with their torches. Liam didn't waste a second. He rolled behind a cracked tombstone, crawled to the broken fence, and escaped through the hole, hands bloody, shirt ripped, coin clutched tightly in his palm. Back in the city. By 11:15 a.m., he was back at the mansion, covered in dust, looking like someone who had fought death and won. He crept through the back kitchen before anyone could spot him. Alara was already mopping the hallway when she saw him. Her eyes widened in shock. You, Liam? You went? He didn't speak. He walked straight to her, took her hand, and dropped the coin into her palm. Happy birthday, he whispered, and this was buried with it. He gave her the wrapped bundle, his hands shaking. Keep it. Don't open it here. Wait until you're alone. Her lips quivered. Her fingers tightened around the coin. Her tears fell fast. Liam stepped back, gave her one last look, then walked away, limping quietly to his room. Alara waited until midnight. She had hidden the bundle inside an old wooden drawer behind the laundry room, a place no one ever bothered to check. Her heart thumped with every passing second, the weight of the gold coin warm in her palm. She stared at it again, her only memory, her only proof that something bigger lived in her past. The house was dead silent. Clarissa was snoring in her air-conditioned room. The merchant and his wife were locked away in their chambers. Even the guards at the gate had dozed off. She quietly towed back to the laundry room, shut the door behind her, and on a small touch. Her hands shook as she unwrapped the black cloth Liam had given her. Inside was a small box, aged and scratched, with a bronze latch. Her fingers hesitated. What could be inside? She whispered to herself. She slowly opened it. Gasp! Inside was a thing, a tiny necklace with the initials EM. She smiled. This is another gift from the graveyard, she whispered. Just then, the door creaked open. A tall shadow stood behind her. She froze. Who's there? She choked. The voice came softly. It's me. Liam. He had returned. He couldn't sleep. Something had told him to check on her. He saw the necklace. His eyes widened. "Alara," he whispered, stunned. "This is beautiful, and it looks so natural and ancient." She nodded. "Another gift from the dead," she said, voice cracking. That same night, she sat quietly with Liam in the laundry room. Her hands trembled as she held the gold coin and the necklace with the engraved initials EM. Her voice was soft, barely above a whisper. "Keep them for me, Liam," she said, pressing the items gently into his hands. "Hide them until my birthday." He looked at her, confused. "Why?" She smiled through her tears. "Because I don't want to claim them in fear. I want to receive them in peace, as a gift. Like I matter, like I was meant to have them all along." Liam nodded slowly, emotion rising in his throat. He tucked the necklace and the coin carefully into a pouch and promised to guard them with his lawn. Alara's 18th birthday. Alara waited at their usual spot, a stone bench under the flowering hibiscus tree. She wore her plainest dress, yet today she looked like royalty. Her hair fell softly over her shoulders. Her hands were folded quietly on her lap. Liam arrived, dressed in a clean white shirt, holding a small velvet pouch. He sat beside her, his heartbeat loud in his chest. For a moment, they said nothing. Just the songs of early birds filled the air. Then he turned to her. "Close your eyes," he whispered. Alara obeyed, her lips curling into a soft smile. Liam reached into the pouch. First, he pulled out the gold coin, polished, glowing in the sunlight. He slipped it gently into her palm, curling her fingers over it. "The first treasure you ever had," he whispered. "Your memory, your fight, your proof." Next, he unfastened the delicate necklace and leaned in, carefully placing it around her neck. His hands trembled slightly as he secured the clasp. "And this," he said, voice filled with emotion, "the gift from the dead, the one no one can ever take from you." She opened her eyes, their gaze locked. "Happy birthday, Alara," he said, barely audible. Tears welled up in her eyes, warm, healing tears. For the first time in her life, someone had given her back gift as a human. Not just things. Gift, worth, love. "Thank you," she whispered, "for seeing me when I was invisible to the world." They sat there in silence, hand in hand, the necklace glinting in the sun, the coin held close to her chest. Alara didn't just feel like a maid anymore. She felt like a human being. And Liam? He looked at her not with pity, but with honor. Alara and Liam were still lost in the warmth of the moment. But suddenly, "Allah!" Clarissa's voice shattered the silence like thunder. Alara jumped to her feet in fear. Liam turned, startled. But before he could speak, Alara had already taken off running toward the house. Clarissa stood by the hallway with folded arms and a wicked smirk. "Take this," she snapped, throwing a sealed white envelope into Alara's hands. "Father forgot it. He's at a billionaire's meeting at the Banky Event Center. Go and give it to him." Alara looked up, confused. "But can I get transport fare?" "No." Clarissa cut her off. "Run. My legs ache. I'm not going. Now move before I change my mind." With no time to argue, Alara held the envelope close and took off, her legs aching, but she ran. She ran past street corners, past curious eyes, past honking cars and busy sidewalks. Sweat soaked her clothes. Her feet stung from the rough tar road. Her throat burned from thirst. But she didn't stop. She ran because she was used to running. At last, she reached the massive glass building. Banky Event Center. Inside, the hall was packed with men, diamonds, and power. Giant chandeliers glowed from the ceiling. Voices hummed in quiet business chatter. Alara burst in, gasping for air, searching for her master among the crowd. But before she could spot him, "Excuse me," boomed a commanding voice from the stage. Everyone turned to the speaker. The chairman of the event, an elderly man in all-white attire, his face filled with shock, but he wasn't looking at the crowd. He was pointing at her. "You, please come here. What is your name?" Alara froze. Her legs trembled. Her hands clutched the envelope tighter. She had no idea what she had done wrong. Was she in trouble? Was she about to be thrown out? Tears welled in her eyes. "My name is Alara," she stammered. A hush fell over the room. The chairman stepped off the stage and walked slowly toward her. "Please," he said gently. "Turn your left ear to me." Confused, Alara turned her head. The moment her hair moved aside and her birthmark became visible, the chairman dropped to his knees. Gasps echoed across the hall. "It's her," the chairman whispered. "She bears the birthmark, the one written in our founder's will." He stood up slowly, his voice now strong. "Your grandfather is the man who built all of this. He left behind a symbol, this very necklace," he said, pointing to her chest. "And a sign? That birthmark. You, child, are the bloodline we've waited years to find." Everyone turned toward Alara. Even her master, the merchant, was now standing, eyes wide, mouth open, slowly bowing along with the others in the room. One by one, the rich and powerful bowed to her. Tears rolled down Alara's cheeks. She didn't speak. She couldn't. The hall was silent. Alara stood trembling, her chest rising and falling, eyes wide with disbelief. Then the chairman continued, his voice thick with emotion. "We have been searching for the only son of your grandfather for years," he said, wiping his eyes. "He was a great man, the founder of all this wealth, this land, this legacy, but he had only one child, a son." The chairman paused, eyes scanning the crowd, then returned to Alara's face. "About 12 years ago," he continued, "we received word that your father was living in a faraway village, poor, quiet, with his wife and his 2 children." Alara gasped. The room held its breath. 5 days later, we, the board, traveled down to find him. But when we arrived, we found nothing left. His voice broke. He turned his face away for a moment, then back. His hut had been burned to the ground. Everyone was said to be dead. A whole family gone. Only one child, one girl, was rumored to have survived. But by the time we searched, you were already lost, scattered into the wind. He took a step closer. We searched. We posted notices. We followed every rumor. But nothing led us to you. Still, I refuse to forget your name. Alara, the name whispered to us that day. The old man turned to the others. Then he turned back to Alara. You are the bloodline of our founder. All of us here, every single one of us, built our fortunes, our homes, our status on your grandfather's lands, businesses, and dreams. He pointed at the necklace. That symbol is the key to the inheritance, and your birthmark is the final proof. Then he raised his voice. You are our boss. Murmurs of, she's the one, it's her, she's the heir, rose from the crowd. Your father, the chairman said gently, was just 10 years old when his father died. We don't know how he disappeared after that, but he is our hero, and we pledged our loyalty to him. Now, we offer that same loyalty to you. Today, we do not only welcome you, we return what belongs to you. The old man turned to the guards. Take her to the boutique. Let her choose anything she wants. Let her be taken to the 5-star Royal Haven Hotel tonight. Assign 2 maids to her immediately. This girl has walked barefoot for too long. Alara broke into tears. She covered her face with her hands. All her years of pain, of hunger, of humiliation had led to this moment, from being kicked like dirt to now being called boss. She was the flame that survived the ashes, and now the world would know her name, Alara. In just one moment, everything changed. From a maid who mopped floors barefoot to the true heir of wealth, honor, and legacy. Hours later, the front door slammed open. The merchant stormed in, his voice thundering through the mansion. Where is that girl? He barked. Where is Clarissa? Clarissa and her mother were both sitting on the couch, sipping fruit wine and chatting. They froze instantly. Don't play dumb, the merchant snapped, pointing an angry finger. I gave you an instruction to bring a letter to me. Why would you hand it over to that orphan girl and send her to a room filled with billionaires? His voice echoed. The walls seemed to tremble. See where your pride and arrogance has led us now. His wife stood up, confused. Wait, you're angry because Clarissa sent Alara an errand? But you never said we shouldn't send her, she defended. Since when did you start caring who runs errands? That girl has always been our slave. The merchant stared at them. His shoulders slowly dropped. Alara, he whispered. They leaned in. Alara is not who we thought she was. What do you mean? His wife asked slowly. He looked up at them, and for the first time in years, a single tear rolled down his cheek. She, she is the real heir to all our wealth, our lands, our business, our homes, every title, every property built on Emerald Marco's legacy. It's hers. His wife's jaw dropped. You don't mean it, the merchant continued. Everyone in that hall today bowed to her. We all worshipped her. Alara is the blood of Emerald Marco, the only surviving descendant, the lost heir. Clarissa burst into laughter. Dad, come on, you're joking, right? That dirty girl? That broomstick we mopped the house with? Our Alara? The merchant slowly shook his head. You don't understand, Clarissa. This isn't just wealth. This is power. Bloodline power. She had a necklace on her neck and a birthmark. It confirmed everything. Clarissa's laughter died in her throat. She stared at her father, her mouth open. Her mother sat back down, her legs too weak to hold her. No, this cannot be, the woman whispered. She used to scrub my shoes. I slapped her for dropping a cup. Oh God. Clarissa's eyes filled with panic. You mean I called the owner of everything in this house a rat? I made her wash my undies. I insulted her. Her voice cracked. I slapped her, the real boss. I slapped her. The merchant looked away. From now on, we're nothing but tenants living under her roof. Silence. Dead, cold silence filled the room. They had built their pride on her pain, and now the flame from the ashes had risen. Alara had returned. At the boardroom, the elevator doors opened slowly. Alara stepped out, wearing a simple dress and the necklace that now sparkled around her neck. Two maids walked behind her, carrying her files. Her shoes clicked gently against the marble floor. Every step echoed. She looked scared, but also graceful. At the end of the hallway was a massive double door made of mahogany wood. Gold letters were engraved above it. Emerald Marco Conglomerate Boardroom. The guards opened the doors wide, heads turned. There were over 20 powerful-looking men and women seated inside, billionaires, chairmen, CEOs, and directors of companies that ran entire cities. They had been whispering among themselves until they saw her. Then silence fell. The chairman who discovered her stood up with tears in his eyes. Gentlemen and ladies, he said slowly, please rise for the rightful heir of Emerald Marco's empire, the granddaughter of the man who fed nations, the bloodline of the only hero we ever had. Welcome. He turned to Alara. Miss Alara Montgomery Marco. Everyone rose immediately, pushing their chairs back. Some even removed their caps. The air changed. Alara froze. She looked behind her, unsure if someone else had walked in. Me? She whispered. Yes, child, the chairman said warmly. You. He walked over and pulled out the chair at the head of the table, the same chair her grandfather once sat in. This is your seat now. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Her hand trembled as she took a slow step forward, then another. She passed the men who once gave orders to nations, and now bowed their heads in respect. When she sat down, the chairman continued, Alara, we've searched for you for over a decade. After the fire that took your parents, we thought you were gone, but destiny has preserved you for such a time as this. He lifted the coin she had found years ago. This coin, he said, was from your grandfather's private vault. Only one was missing until now. He placed it on the table gently. Then he turned the projector on. The screen behind lit up, showing an old photo of a man with kind eyes, Alara's father, holding two children in front of a small hut. Everyone looked at Alara again. He died poor, but you will live in the fullness of his inheritance. One of the women on the board stood up. From today, she said, no decision will be made in this boardroom without your approval. The others nodded. Long live Alara Marco, they all echoed. Long live the true heir. Alara covered her face and wept. She had been mopped, slapped, starved, but now she ruled over those who once ruled. The visit to the merchant's house. It was around noon. The once quiet street outside the merchant's house suddenly roared with life. Neighbors rushed to their windows. 4 sleek black cars slowly pulled over in front of the house. Uniformed guards stepped out first, followed by 2 maids who quickly opened the door of the 3rd car. Alara stepped out gracefully. Her face held peace, but her eyes carried weight, the weight of memories, scars, and deep gratitude. Clarissa peeked through the curtain. She nearly dropped her phone. "Mum, she's here," she gasped. Her mother's eyes widened. They both ran to the living room and stood frozen. The doorbell rang. The merchant opened the door himself. He bowed. "Welcome, Princess Alara." Alara gave a small nod. "I came to see Liam." The merchant stepped aside immediately, as if afraid to breathe wrong. Liam came downstairs. He was dressed simply, just as he always was. But the moment he saw her, his smile broke through his shock. "Alara," he whispered. She walked toward him, then gently took his hand. "You helped search out the coin for me, and brought it with the necklace. You risked everything for a girl who had nothing." She paused, her voice shaking. "If I never met you, Liam, I would still be mopping floors, living in fear. Thank you. From the deepest part of my soul." Liam blinked back tears. He looked down at their hands. "I didn't do it for thanks," he said softly. "I did it because you mattered to me." Just then, Clarissa stepped forward. Her eyes were already swollen. "Alara, I know I don't deserve to speak, but please, let me say something." Alara turned slowly. Clarissa knelt down, holding her mother's hand. "I was cruel to you. I slapped you, insulted you, treated you worse than garbage. You served this house with a pure heart, and we crushed it." "I don't know how to undo what I've done," her mother added, falling to her knees beside her daughter. "But please, forgive us. You were a child, and we were monsters." The room fell silent. Even the guards outside stood still. Alara looked at them for a long time. Then she bent slowly and touched Clarissa's shoulder. "I forgive you." Clarissa burst into tears. "But I cannot forget," Alara added gently, "because those memories built me. They gave me strength. They shaped who I am." She turned back to Liam. "But in the darkest place, even one tiny light can change everything." She stepped closer to him, her voice soft like a breeze. "And Liam, you were that light." The room filled with quiet sobs and the sound of a soul being healed. Outside, the sky was blue, but inside that house, something more beautiful had just happened. Not revenge, not pride, but forgiveness. And Alara walked out like a queen who had conquered the world with grace. Hello, besties. Alara's story reminds us all, no matter how broken your beginning is, your ending can still be beautiful. One kind soul can change a life. One act of cruelty can never hide the truth forever. Forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. Keep going. Your story is not over yet. To everyone watching, if this story touched your heart, please drop a comment. Tell me the lesson you learned. Like, share, and don't forget to subscribe to join this amazing family. I love you all deeply. Thank you for always supporting my stories. God bless you, besties.